Hey VC, it's Dave here. Thought I'd get on here and do a response or a tag to James's thread or his response that he left about rock music or world rock music or just international music. He was pretty open about it, and what I'm going to show here is pretty open or broad too. Not everything in here is rock per se, but most of the stuff that I'm going to show I can recommend. So let's just get started and we'll go from there. The first thing I'm going to show is this Patrick Ball album, Celtic Harp, and he's not an international musician, but it's a real nice album. And as you can see here, it's the music of, let's see here, Turlo O'Carolan, if I'm saying that properly. And it's a real nice harp album, just mostly solo harp, which may sound boring, but it's not. I usually like listening to something like this during the cooler months, like winter and stuff like that. But yeah, it's still pretty recommendable. It's on the Fortuna label. And he did some other albums as well. I have one on CD, another one on CD that he did. So yeah, that's, like I said, it's Celtic music. Excuse me, my allergies are messing with me today. Got a scratchy throat and all that kind of thing. Just lovely. But and here's another one that's not quite rock and roll. This is John McLaughlin, Natural Elements. And he's playing with this band called Shakti, which is an Indian group of musicians. I love the album cover, and it's followed on the back. But this is more of a acoustic venture with McLaughlin, and generally when I hear some John McLaughlin, I prefer stuff along this line, over say his heavy fusion stuff. But this album here is really recommendable. It's a really nice album that you can listen to just about any time. It's like I said, it's more jazzy, but with world overtones to it. You've got Shankar on here. I forget his first name, but he plays violin, viola. There's tablas, timbales, and all sorts of bongos, all sorts of Indian instruments. But yeah, pretty recommendable album there. This is Mark Hollander's Sock McBull album, and I'm not going to try and pronounce the title of it here. It looks like it says The Dance of, I don't know, Combat and Migraines or something like that. But at any rate, it's another rock and opposition band out of, I think they're out of Belgium. But yeah, like a lot of the rock and opposition bands, it's sort of adventurous music that's kind of progressive at the same time. But if you're into like progressive instruments or progressive bands and into sort of adventurous type music, it's a good way to go. This is on the Cram Disc label, I believe. And there's all sort of instruments on here, like there's organ, electric and acoustic piano, alto sax, bass, clarinet, flutes, xylophone, something called a dumbeg, and guitars. So yeah, it's pretty diverse in the instrumentation. So yeah, always like the album cover on that as well. Now for African music, these two albums, this is King Sunny Ade's and his African Beats. This is called Juju music. And this, along with this one here, which is called Synchro Systems, are probably my two favorite African albums. And I just bought a 2 CD set by him as well, but it doesn't have the Juju Beats on here, which I guess is the band that kind of backs him up on this. And these are real sort of atmospheric, sometimes dark sounding in a way, but there's an atmosphere on here that I really do like. And of course you got the African guitar that he plays. And yeah, both of these are really worth picking up. I can recommend them. And as far as the African music, these are probably my two favorites. Can't hardly go wrong with this. But yeah, I mean, there are some vocals, but they are, you know, inobtrusive. There's keyboards, congas, and all sorts of guitars, steel guitars, drums, of course. So yeah, this is on the Mango label. I think they both are. One's on Mango. Yeah, they both are on the Mango label. This is a band, I don't know that I can pronounce their name. Let's see here. Sankala, perhaps. And this is more world music. I mean, more so than rock. And it's kind of more along a acoustic line. This is on the Icon record label, and it's kind of more almost ambient in a lot of ways. And this is modern instrumental music from Indonesia. And the only thing that I don't care for is that it sounds all too similar. But aside from that, it's a pretty good album. It's got a nice map here of the Indonesia, I guess. But yeah, it's a pretty good album. But what I would recommend, which is closer to maybe rock music over, say, this one, which, you know, this one is good enough, would be, see if there's anything on here that I can, well, it's just as modern Indonesian music that uses traditional instrumentation and classical Degung forms. The Degung, if I'm pronouncing that right, Degung ensemble is comprised of 7 instrumentalists, 1 flute or suling player, a drummer, a kendang player, and the remaining 5 playing a variety of tuned gongs and mellophones. So yeah, you kind of get it's almost kind of ambient in some ways, but yeah, also kind of is in that Gamelan type style. So yeah, but if I was going to recommend some Gamelan music, I would, over this album actually, I would recommend something by Jon Hassell. And like I said, these are kind of more modern update on Gamelan music. Jon Hassell plays the trumpet, but you've got other, you know, assorted musicians on here like Nana Vasconcelos, which I believe is a Brazilian. You got Michael Brooks that plays bass. Brian Eno's on here, and you know, a lot of other people. Percy Jones that I think played in Brand X. Yeah, so these are really pleasant albums too, and you know, great artwork. And it just has kind of an ambient, almost at times kind of a dark feel to them, you know, atmosphere. So yeah, I've got that one. You know, all these Jon Hassell albums are really good. The artist that did the cover for this is the same artist that did the art for Santana's Abraxas album cover. This one's called Dream Therapy in Malaysia. You got this one here, which is AKA Darbari Java. Really lovely cover. Here's one called The City. and Power Spot. Now he may have more albums than this, but this is the ones that I own. Here's one I listened to yesterday, and it was really pleasant. Which all these albums, that's why I like them, is because they're pleasant. I tend to like things that are more subtle and, you know, maybe a variety of moods on them. Maybe less rock or straight ahead rock, but this is Angelus by Milton Nascimento, who is a Brazilian artist, I believe. And this is a really neat album, actually. Here he is on the back. And he has a lot of albums. And on this album, he does a cover of Hello, Goodbye by the Beatles. And he has a lot of guest musicians on here as well. Nana Vasconcelos does some vocals on here as well. You've got John Anderson, that was the lead singer for Yes. He does vocals on here. You've got Wayne Shorter, and he's done an album with Wayne Shorter that I don't have, but it would be interesting to hear. There's also James Taylor does a vocal and probably plays guitar on it as well. On cut 11, there is a Peter Gabriel sings a little bit on there. Pat Metheny's on here along with Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Dak DeJohnette on a couple of cuts, on 3 cuts. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think there's a female vocal on here as well. But, you know, it opens with strings or instrument or strings or like a symphony almost in some ways. But, you know, it switches styles all over the place. Yeah, it's got like the Beatles rendition of Hello, Goodbye on here, along with the other songs. It's just a really pleasant album. This is Yaz Kaz, who is a Japanese percussionist. And he has a couple of albums, or like 4 or 5 albums, 6 albums, I don't know. But he also plays with, has put out albums that he plays with other musicians that he's on it. I think he's been in, have played with Bill Laswell and his Material bands and several of the bands that he's been in. This is the back of it. You know, I didn't notice today, I was looking up this album and on the web today, and I didn't know that this has kind of gone up in price. This is an original pressing on Gramavision Records, which is generally a jazz, I guess a jazz label. But I think all this is just Yaz Kaz, well, except for maybe one cut with another musician, or maybe there's 1 or 2 other musicians that play on here. But it has remarks. It says, only acoustic, no electronic or electric instruments. Only acoustic, no electric instruments. So there's not really any synthesizer on here or anything, although it kind of sounds like that at times. And also this goes through a lot of different moods. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's kind of meditative, and sometimes it's kind of sort of, you know, sort of like Steve Reich in some ways, how it kind of sets up a hypnotic thing. I guess that would be drone. So, yeah, this is a really interesting album, and you know, you can listen to the whole thing of this, I think, on Bandcamp, if I'm not mistaken. I was also looking up, if you're interested in buying this, you can, I think Bandcamp has, they've reissued this on red vinyl, and you can buy the red vinyl over at Bandcamp. But I was looking over at eBay, and there was one copy over there for, I think, $10 plus shipping. So, you know, if you're interested in the album, I would, you know, look into it. It's a real pleasant album. This is Yaz Kaz on the Gramavision. It was originally released on Gramavision, but has since been re-released, and I don't know what label that is on. Probably gonna mispronounce this name here. This is a Corelia, perhaps, and they're a Finnish band. And I have 2 albums by them, and as you can see, this kind of looks like it's, you know, acoustic in the field type thing. But yeah, it's a really pleasant album as well. It's on a Finnish label, Bluebird, and it's all instrumental, and you know, they play, let's see here if I can see, just like flutes, and you know, there's a guy here with a sort of a stringed, maybe a dulcimer or, you know, something like that. A guy playing a hand drum, you know, congas, tablas, you know, different things like that. But yeah, real pleasant. Can't pronounce any of the songs on here because it's in Finnish. But yeah, overall a really nice album, and I have this one as well by them. And it too is pleasant. Let's see if I can see what, well, no, the instruments that they play on here. There is a mini moog on here. I can see that in English. But here they are on the back. And yeah, it's a real pleasant album too, if you like sort of world acoustic music. Then we have, I've mentioned Andrae Vollenweeder or Vollenweeder. I'm not too sure how he says the name, but he is a Swiss harpist that plays with other musicians. Got to see him play live in Austin. It was a really nice concert. Really great back in the 80s. And, you know, there's all kind of instruments on here. This is really nice music and pleasant to hear, you know, kind of pretty. I don't have, you know, any problems with music being pretty or easy to get into or commercial sounding, really. It's all, you know, I mean, why not? I mean, I love that kind of stuff. You know, I can get into sort of the RIO stuff and sort of the adventurous music, as well as, you know, something like this. It all depends upon my mood. And he plays with all kind of instrumentalists on here. There's woodwind instruments, sax, you know, guitars, accordions, synthesizers, you know, drums and bass and everything like that. But I've got several of his albums, and there might be a little bit of a fantasy aspect to his music, which may, I don't know, turn some people off. It doesn't bother me at all. But yeah, Andrae Vollenweeder from Switzerland. His albums used to be played all the time on the radio in Austin, back on one of the World Beat channels that they had back in the day. This is Embryo, which is a German band, or a German collective, I think, and maybe not everything, no, maybe not all the musicians are German. There may be a British guy in there too as well, but at any rate, they're a really interesting sort of jazz rock band. And here's another one. This is Apocalypso, and I always wondered what that meant, really. And I'm guessing it means maybe put the two together. It's a play on calypso, the word calypso, but maybe if you put this ahead of it, it would be apocalypso or something like that. But again, German collective, jazzy, jazz rockish. Can't really think of anything. They kind of started out as a krautrock band, actually, but you know, any of those German krautrock bands, you know, were got into that kind of jazz rock kind of thing. You know, there's all kind of instruments on here, from you know, organ, marimbas, keyboards, drums, Turlik Gertu, who has played on a lot of different jazz albums, tablas. He plays tablas on here. So, yeah, real interesting album. That along with this one is kind of more, maybe more Indian in that vein, with more Indian type instruments. That's the band right there. And this is on the Ball label. You can probably hear these things over on Bandcamp as well, I would imagine. And if not, you could probably hear parts of it on YouTube, if not for the whole thing. This one is more Asian influence. It's called Knee High, maybe. I love the covers on some of these things too. And this is the back. There he is playing marimba. He's percussionist, I believe. But, all these things are in the CD format, are really well made. Comes with a little booklet. So yeah, this is Embryo. The earlier stuff was more in the krautrock type vein, but I like these every bit as well. This is music of the Andes from Incuyo. And I believe they're a Peruvian band, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, I didn't look this up, but it's on the Fortuna label. And kind of more acoustic band, playing sort of, folk and indigenous music and songs from their area. Temple of the Sun is the name of it. Haven't heard this in quite a while. I should play this, actually. But I do remember enjoying it quite a bit. Pleasant. Let's see here. Of course, there's always this. This is the Buena Vista Social Club, which was a documentary of some time back and has a bunch of different Cuban musicians on here. And this is another thing that's in the same vein. This is sort of an anthology of different Brazilian musicians. I like picking up stuff like this if I don't, if I'm unfamiliar with the country or something, pick up stuff like this. You can hear an overview of a lot of interesting things. This is Nusret Fateh Ali Khan along with Michael Brooks. And Ali Khan is I think he is a Middle East musician that also sings. Michael Brooks, I think, is a British musician. And the name of the album is called Night Songs. Really sort of beautiful packaging. And it does have sort of a Middle Eastern vibe to it with the singing and all, but it's not, I find it very approachable, actually. I believe Michael Brooks plays, if I'm not mistaken, guitar, either guitar or keyboard, synthesizers. See if I can see on here real quick. But, well, I don't see it on here real quick. But, yeah, really pleasant album. That's what the back looks like. Then we have Pulsar, which I think is they're out of Poland, if I'm not mistaken. Early, check out those hairstyles. Kind of in a progressive rock vein. Sort of, like a lot of progressive rock, it changes and goes into different areas and what have you. There's organ, acoustic piano, electric guitars, along with acoustic guitars. flutes, stuff like that. And yeah, pretty good album as I can remember it. Like I said, I think they are Polish if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, pretty interesting band. Pulsar. This is an Italian band. This is Locanda del Fate. I'm not going to be able to pronounce the title of it. But an Italian band, not too indifferent from the band PFM, if you're familiar with them. But there's a whole lot of Italian progressive bands out there that, you know, that have made music. If I can, I might make a video on just Italian bands, Italian progressive bands. But yeah, I kind of like PFM in some ways, as is La Orme. This is kind of like a greatest hits. It's called Anthology, 1970 to 1980. La Orme, again, flutes, some singing in Italian, you know, flutes, guitars, you know, basic rock and roll ensemble, but with flutes, I guess you could say. And a lot of this stuff, you know, I wouldn't say it's bluesy, but sometimes they'll get kind of acousticy. And, but yeah, sometimes they'll use Mellotron too, which may have been why I picked this up, but I do like Mellotron, and it's probably on this as well. You know, it was a big instrument back in the day. So, yeah, anyway, that's a few of the things that I've got that I can show. I picked out some more, but I don't, you know, I think these are plenty. So, you know, it's summer down here in Texas already. It's been in the 90s. It's just, you know, we have about 4 months of summer here. And it came on early, and my allergies are paying for it. But hope everybody is finding some good music to listen to and enjoying the warmer months. So, yeah, Dave, we'll talk to you later.